child. I learned a thing or two from my neighbors. According to Protestant thinking, every Christian needs to have a testimony. And I like the way black people call it. They say that you need to testify, you're testifying. Come on now. So I'm going to, and I love that because it is an active verb rather than just give a testimony. I'm testifying today. I'm the mother of 4 boys. One of them, though, was born anatomically female. What I want to share is my testimony of how God prepared me to be the mother of a transgender child. When I was a teenager, I specifically remember praying to be of purpose, to make a difference, to matter. But as a young adult, I was angry with God because I didn't understand why He was pushing me to a different college, pushing me to a different field of study, special education, interpreting for the deaf. He was taking me from English and writing and my hermit life I wanted to live. I even worked as a job placement counselor for the deaf in Little Rock. I felt Him behind me just as surely as you feel your friend next to you. I just didn't understand why. Fast forward a dozen years, and I am pregnant. My husband had said, "Why don't we try for that little girl you've always wanted?" We already had 2 sons when we found out we were expecting twins. At that point, my husband and I discovered that not only his first cousin had twin boys, but both our great-grandmothers had twin boys. His great-uncles were Lester and Chester Davis. My great-uncles were Romulus and Remus Rodriguez. You know, back then, that they could identify a boy much earlier than they could identify a girl in utero. Almost right away, they told me one was a boy. I am not proud of what I'm fixing to say because it shows you how shallow I can be. You would probably not have wanted to know me those 2 months before I found out what kind of genitals the other child had. I had never been on my knees as much. I cried. I begged. I bartered. More than anything, I just wanted a daughter. When those twins were born, our family was complete and perfect. 3 boys and a girl. At 16 months, after studying her for a long time, she was diagnosed as profoundly deaf. The day she was diagnosed as being deaf was one of the best days of my life. I realized God had handpicked me to be her mother. He had given me my purpose, and she was surrounded by 3 adoring brothers. Life was full of obstacles, but life was good. Sometime between 1st and 2nd grade, I started noticing different behaviors. My child became to hate anything pretty on her. And as you can imagine, being my only daughter, I smocked her dresses, I dressed her up. I doted on her. So I used to make beautiful dresses, and then I stopped. It wasn't until she was a high school junior that she started articulating out loud that she was different. And by that I mean she wasn't only deaf. Until she graduated from high school, she thought she was gay. But that changed when she realized she really felt like a he, and he was born in the wrong body. I think it took a lot longer for him to know himself than others because he had to first learn the vocabulary of what he was feeling. So his deafness delayed him somewhat. That is why I advocate for gender education in our schools. The day he came out as transgender, after a couple days of confusion, I felt God with me. I can't explain it if you have never felt that, except that He was as real to me as I am to you. More so because what came over me was utter and complete peace. I saw God's hand in everything, and I remembered the way I reacted during my pregnancy. I had always reflected on how I responded with shame, but I realized that my years of praying for a purpose had brought me to this place of being a mother to Him. God had given me what I wanted, until I could accept what he really wanted. The day my son finally emerged was another best day of my life. You see, when we pray, but we place conditions on God, as in, God, give me work to do, please, but make sure it is a position I would want. Make sure it would not cause me embarrassment. Make sure it would give me a sense of importance. Well, then you are refusing to be open to God's will. So be careful what you pray for, because you might have to grow in order to fulfill that work. I have grown apart from people who live inauthentic lives because their energies are spent maintaining the mask they wear so they can fit in with a crowd that never cared for them anyway. I have grown apart from people who have God on a leash, and that's the only way they know how to deal with him. Mine is a powerful God, and he has done amazing things. I am humbled to remember that I did not always see his hand at work in my life. So I encourage you to be patient with those who claim to be Christian but who do not love. Love the sinner, hate the sin. We can love them, but we hate the sin of oppression. We hate the sin of discrimination. We hate the sin of hate. And always we have a need, and we hate those who always have a need to put someone else under them. That is why the Apostle Paul writes words like these. This is from his letter to the church of Colossae. Therefore, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other. I did have a daughter, and sometimes I unpack her dresses, and sometimes I unpack the beautiful pictures that I keep in my bedroom so that they're not right in front of her and hurt her feeling, where she's all dressed up in her pretty dresses. But these are just artifacts that show me how much God truly loves me. I look at my child now, who is the same inside as before, and I see a happy, confident young man. How could I ever want to trade that in for a little girl? He has grown into exactly what God had intended all along, my heart. And here it is, almost Mother's Day. And I want to talk to you about your mothers. Maybe you have a mother who has turned her back on you. Maybe she has thrown you out. But I can assure you that she still loves you. I am no better than your mother. I just put a lot of energy into listening to God. I expected him to answer. I just didn't expect the way he answered. I did my groveling while my child was still in my uterus. I had many years to reflect on my actions and God's response. Of course, I was embarrassed to remember how I begged for something as insanely insignificant as what gender my baby was. Your mother may not have had that chance to reflect on her own opinions or actions, or to grieve for her lost son or daughter. This Mother's Day, tell her you love her. Just extend your love. My prayer is that you get that love returned 100 times. If you don't, come cry with me, and I will give you a hug. I will hold the place of your mother until she is ready to accept the gift that God has given to her, until you get that love that God so desires for you. I'll be your mama, because the greatest of God's commandments is to love.